Good morning, Bob. Good morning, Blues. WRFG Atlanta.
Good morning, Blues. We'll brighten up your day as you put on your shoes. Yeah, yeah. You know it's got to be the way to wake up each and every day on WRFG in Atlanta. Good morning, Blues.
Good morning, Blues.
Hi, this is Dana Gillespie from London, England, to tell you about the second best way to wake up. Just tune in to UK Bob and his Good Morning Blues show and feel good for 4 hours on WRFG Atlanta.
It's Good Morning Blues, and it's Thursday, which means you get to talk to someone super interesting. And I'm not going to let you down today because we're on the phone with the very talented blues man somewhere in deepest, darkest England, Mr. Bernie Marsden. How are you, Barney?
Good morning. How are you?
Jolly good. Did you have vodka on your cornflakes this morning?
No, those days are gone. Those days are gone. I think, not that they ever really happened, but I know what you're getting at.
Well, that's because I'm such a wimp. I don't drink, never have. Now, at the grand old age of 65, people ask questions. What happened? No, nothing happened. There is no YouTube. I just never liked it, you know.
That's fair enough. But you're in the minority in my world. Yeah.
Yes, I am aware of that. I'm reminded. But my wife is thrilled to have a permanent chauffeur, so that works for her. Yeah. So this album, Kings, we just got a hold of it last week, played a couple of tracks, loving it, and apparently you're blaming Billy Gibbons for this.
Yeah, it's all the great Reverend Willie's fault. I did a show with Billy in the end of 2019 time, and we just got talking about stuff we grew up on, and he said, wouldn't it be great if we could make an album of all the stuff we grew up with, because Kim Wilson had done a similar thing. And he played me his track, and Billy was very excited about it. And I thought, that's a damn fine idea. So as I got back after the gig that night, we had a great play together, and I started putting together my list of songs, which wasn't difficult, really, because there's quite a lot to draw from.
Well, there is a lot that comes under that title, but I did wonder how you got around to actually creating the selection. What were the factors? Was it that easy to say these are my favourites, or did you have to pick and choose? And did rhythm come into play?
They're not necessarily even my favourite by Freddie, Albert, or BB. It's just a matter of I wanted to do stuff that I felt I could add something into a different kind of attitude to it, and I think I could have made this record to a certain extent, with any time in the last 35, 40 years, really. But I wouldn't have made such a good record because I think lyrically now I can get behind what these songs are saying, because I've had a long career, and I have family and been through all the ups and downs, the blacks and whites, the different colours of the rainbow or whatever of general life. And I think to sing these songs now, I think I could understand them a bit better than I could. In the old days, all I listened to really was the content of the guitar playing, which is, nothing wrong with that. But I didn't really take too much of that much interest in the lyrics. And now that's what I wanted to. That's why I did stuff like, Help the Poor and stuff like that. I think it's just a slightly different attitude.
Well, it certainly comes across, because my 20-second interpretation of the album, remember, as a music listener, not a musician, and I find that does change things, obviously. What I enjoyed was there's a very fresh, clean, kind of uncluttered set of interpretations, and it's not stripped down. When I say uncluttered, it's a full sound, but there's no waste. There's nothing more than was needed, and it just seemed relaxed. And the end result to me was something extremely listenable for the casual listener. I'm not steeped in the Delta Chicago styles and history, etc., like you are. I know you've done all that. But that's also because my program's called London to Louisiana. So I try. I'm not going to do what all the other blues shows do. So that would be why. But for me, I think you're going to reach a bigger percentage of what I call gem pop by what you've put out. And it's very easy. It's no fuss. It sounds like you're having a good time.
Well, that's exactly what happened. We did the sessions. I wanted to do it as per discussion with Billy, and keep it as live as possible. So there's only 4 people involved on the record, and obviously where there's 2 guitars, I've overdubbed one, or if there's a Hammond organ and an acoustic piano, or one of them was played as. But even then, it was played. I think a lot of the lead guitar on the album is live, and then I added rhythm guitar afterwards. Pretty much normally it's always the other way round, and I just wanted to keep that feel going. The rhythm section were just such good guys, we're into the stuff. We've all been round the block a bit, as they say over here, and we just had a really good time. So much so that we recorded one set of songs so quickly and enjoyably that. Only a week later, I went in and recorded a whole bunch of other stuff from the Chess label. So
I've heard that.
That's coming out in November.
Yeah, I heard that was in the pipeline, which will be interesting.
Yeah.
But you answered one of my thoughts when you said there was just the 3 of you. It has to be easier, where it's just the band, no people stepping in and out, no guests, just heads down, no nonsense. Because I feel that it definitely comes across.
Yeah, there's just the 4 of us, the engineer, and that, and then my dear wife came over to cater for us on her birthday during one of the sessions. Even then,
oh my God!
Well, that was cool because we were kind of up against it a little bit time wise, and we were recorded rurally out in Oxfordshire, where you know what that's like, and to break just to go for supper or for lunch really would have taken 3 hours. So I thought, so she said no, I'll come over and I'll bring stuff over. So we ate in the studio basically, during one of the sessions. That's the kind of attitude. It was like a family thing. It was great.
Yeah, very much a hideaway. You're going to owe her even more than you ever did before now for doing that.
Absolutely, yeah. As if I could ever repay. Yeah. There you go.
I was going to ask you about why Oxford. Did you have a coupon for the studio or something?
No, the studio there is quite legendary over here. It belonged to Fairport Convention through the 70s and 80s, and it's a converted. I was going to say church, but what do we call the smaller churches over
Chapel?
here? I forgot. Chapel, that's it, you got it. And it's really, really good and very, very, I don't know, what's the word, authentic, really, but with modern gear in there. But the actual live room is still the church, the chapel hall itself. And
well, that explains...
There's a lot of wood in there, and it's really cool.
That explains the name of the town. Barford St. Michael sounds rather glamorous, and Woodworm Studios. I mean,
yes.
I didn't know it. I didn't know the background to it. Mind you, I didn't look it up either, and it never occurred to me. Yeah.
There's been some pretty well-known recordings made there over the years. If you're in that Fairport Convention fraternity, And
that makes it super interesting. I had some musicians we were just talking about Austin, from Austin some years ago, come across, and a couple of legendary writers. I don't know why they were on this little acoustic tour. Played in 100-year-old wooden church in North Georgia, like by the river on a mountain kind of thing, and the acoustics were phenomenal. And I took video of that show, which still today people ask me, go on, play it again. It's just weird.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
No,
well, look, let's give people a listen to what we're talking about. We're going to play track 2, Keys to the Highway, because I particularly like, there's a very rich opening to this song. So those of you that are late to the show because you're driving around 285 and you're complaining about your boss or your mum or something, just don't forget, it's much nicer if you just kick back, take your foot off the pedal, and just turn the music up, and none of this is going to matter.
Good morning, blues. This is Marcus Malone on the other side of the Atlantic in jolly London, England. You're listening to my top mate, UK Bob, playing the best of British blues on WRFG Atlanta. What a way to start the day. Oh, yeah.
So key to the highway there, Brunsey, right?
The Great Big Bill Brunsey.
Yeah.
I heard that probably when I was about 16 or 17 the first time round, and again, I thought it was just a cool tune because it wasn't. It's slightly different chord changes and stuff. I then fell in love with the Derek and the Dominoes version of it. I thought that was really pretty cool version of it. But Freddie King did a pretty marvelous rendition, and I've just thrown in that opening riff. That's a bit of my attitude to the track, and then I've gone kind of through the Freddie King arrangement of it because he did a good job of it, and I thought, well, if I'm going to do a King album, I'll do his version of that. It's again lyrically, it's got everything.
Well, you see, that's the thing. You pick something and you make it sound so simple. You say, well, that was my attitude to the song. That opening is what caught my ears and said, I'm going to hang around and see what the rest of it is. And literally, because, and like I say, remember, I'm always talking as a listener, not a musician. But and the organ work on it. I know Bob Hadrell from the Barcodes and the Incredible Blues Puppies, lovely bloke.
Yep.
It comes out very clean on this album. One of the things I liked across the album was he would often be on what sounds like an old school upright piano, which I always liked the mix.
Yeah, there was two pianos in there. There's a grand and an upright, and Bob's very adept. Bob's one of these guys who it's what he doesn't play that makes the difference. And he's a really good guy. He's kind of undersung, one of the Brit guys who have been around a long time. And, just the musicians know who he is. He's not like a publicly known figure really, but musicians, if they need a good piano player or whatever, and they'll all have Bob's number.
No, it's very true. That's the only reason that I knew who he was, is because of all the stuff he's played on, where he's just, one of the session guys or one of the band. But the thing that made sense to me for this album, again, it's all part of a list of factors that make the whole listening experience so enjoyable. When he's on, and I love particularly the B3 and an organ bassist, but whichever unit he's playing on, it's a very underpinning sound. It's right where it should be and nothing more. And it's a very clean element, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, he's very perceptive. It's really good, really good.
But the other thing that struck me was, I don't know who you got in to do the vocals. This bloke sounds like he's 35.
You know what? I've done a few interviews about people have said about the vocal on it, and which is very nice. I've always been I always will be. I'm a guitar player who sings. When I was about 18, and we had a couple of singers around about there who had those extra 2 or 3 octaves, and man, I wanted to be able to do that, but I just could not do it. So I resigned myself to being the guitar player. Then I got thrown in at the deep end to start singing at some point. I've always been quite confident in my voice, but I've never pushed it to the point where you say, well, how do you look after your voice? It sounds like you've really looked after it. And the truth is, I haven't really. I don't warm up before gigs or anything like that. And I don't abuse it, and I don't, I've never smoked or anything like that. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe that's why I don't have the other octaves. I don't know. But, it's nice to be able to interpret the songs now at the age I am, and they come across making the sound how they should sound.
Well, all I thought of is it's the best vocal from you that I can recall, number one, but it also felt like you weren't making an effort, not that you were being lazy, I mean you weren't pushing.
Yeah.
You said you had pushed. It didn't sound like that, And then the third part of that, when it comes to vocals, it also, the way you deliver and this type of voice very much fits the songs that you picked.
Well, thanks for that. I mean, it's it's difficult for a guy from what I call the southeast delta of England to be singing songs that were written about the Howling Wolf, or they were written specifically for Freddie King. There's a line in one of them where, I was 14 years old when I first heard the Wolfman call. Well, that wasn't me, but I just thought the song was great. What a story. And sometimes I feel a bit self-conscious of singing those lines. And, hopefully I might make it sound a little bit easier when I do it. But I am conscious, as I say, very much of the way that these songs were prepared for these artists. And when you write specifically to somebody and then somebody else is singing it, it does kind of change your attitude a little bit. But I wanted to retain what the originals were.
Well, I think you absolutely covered that, and you mentioned back in the beginning that sometimes, it might be difficult to get across to people that, you feel comfortable in singing these songs when you weren't born into it. But I think that's another thing that's useful when you get to the grand old age that we are, is your attitude towards it and your comfort level in an appreciation has improved greatly, because you understand the period, the people, and the music better than you did when you were, 40 years old. And I think that makes it easier for you.
I was very, very fortunate, or whether I don't know, maybe not use the word lucky. The great Mr. B.B. King did a radio show over here in Europe, in Germany, and I didn't know about this until about 10 years later, in the late 90s. And he was asked, what about all these white guys singing the blues? Can they sing the blues? And B.B. King said, of course they can. And he reeled out a load of names. He said, but there's very few who feel the blues. And he said Eric Clapton, Peter Green, Jeff Beck, Johnny Lang, and stuff. And then he put me on the end. And he said, and don't forget Bernie from Whitesnake. And I didn't hear this for 10 years. Surprised? I was absolutely blown away. And, can you imagine if you said to somebody, how much would it cost me to get B.B. King to say something like that? Nobody could afford that kind of money. Nobody could have ever told B.B. given him money to say that kind of thing. And I think what it did was instill some kind of quiet confidence in what I was doing. And the way that he said, people can play, because obviously with people like Peter Green Jimi Hendrix playing blues was fine, absolutely fine. Yeah. But what he said about that thing about feeling the blues, that really had never occurred to me. But I know what he means now. But it's taken me another 20 years to realise, I think, what he meant. So there you go.
No, it's absolutely right. But there's no better endorsement, is there, to make you think that when you've got that kind of approval, then you march on. But it is very much a feeling, and I'm picking to play.
As you can tell, 20 years later, I'm still telling people I was still proud.
Well, let's hear a bit more. We're going to skip on to another track. This time we're going to stay with the highway, as I'm worried about people in their cars this morning. We're going to move to Freddie King, do his Living on the Highway. I think actually written by Leon Russell, if I'm correct. His track 8. We're talking about a brand new album. You've got Bernie Marsden on the phone here talking about Kings, just out, I believe, in the US next week. Where are we? We are the 12th of August. Yeah. So this week or next. Anyway, it'll be very current. You can go to all the usual suspects and find that. And this is the reason I'm going to play this is because traffic can be a little crazy. And now that everything's open again and we've all raced around and got vaccinations, and I've forgotten how lovely it was about a year ago when I would get in the car, drive through the city, and I was the only one on the road. It was kind of an odd feeling, but that's all gone. It's back to chaos, so everybody be careful out there. Living on the highway, like I always tell you, take your foot off the gas pedal and Just kick back and turn the music up. It will be all right. You're going to get there the same time as everyone else. Bernie Marsden, Living on the Highway.
Ah! Good morning, everybody. This is Roger Cotton from the Peter Green Splinter Group. Here we are in the Kent Delta recording the new Barcodes Blues album with some wonderful players on it, and hope you're going to enjoy it when old Bob gets his hands on it. He said Bob is tall, good looking and incredibly available. So there you are. Okay, so listen in. Good morning, Blues. UK Bob, WRFG 89.3 FM. Take it easy. Or as BB King once said to me, who are you?
So that's another driving song to support the people that are a captive audience in the traffic. Like I say, you can play this whole thing, soup to nuts, and enjoy the fact that it does all connect, and it is a very relaxed, but it very much has your DNA. It's not somebody doing covers. I don't hear that at all, and I would be critical. It's the reason I don't go see. I don't mind the occasional tribute band if they're very good at what they do. But this is nothing like that. This is, without changing too much, making it recognizable, but absolutely has your blood vein running through it. So again, the fact that that's such a natural delivery, because you were certainly having a good time, I think that's all part of getting it right.
I never saw it as a tribute album. I always talk about it as a thank you album. And without these guys, I discovered all three of these guys retrospectively after Clapton, Beck, Green, Hendrix, because they were the guys, they were talking about the people that influenced them when I was 16 or 17. So I only discovered them, after the English guys had recorded their material. And I realized then how much they influenced my guitar playing for the next, forever. They still do. I still listen to BB on a regular basis, or any of them really, or go to YouTube to find performances I may not have seen before and stuff. And I still get excited, and a tingle, is always there when I see Freddie King play. I was lucky enough to see him play live on many occasions over here in England, and I just treasure those evenings where we drove out, distances to go and see him, and there he was, like 1 meter away from us, and up on a big man, as standing on a 4-foot stage. He became like 10 feet tall, and he played like it as well, and that's always stayed with me.
Well, that's how you reach legendary status. I didn't know these people till I was probably 40 years old. My heroes were very different. My thrill would be standing, 6 feet from Stevie Marriott or Lee Brillo from Dr. Feelgood, or a very early 70s Rod Stewart. So I didn't know. I was ignorant to all that, and it's not because I was living in England. I didn't come here till I was almost 30. It wasn't that. My brain just wasn't there. My appreciation came much later, and I've seen in the 30 years I've been here how people do really worship those guys, and now I understand why. I didn't at the time, Yeah.
And when I got to talk to, because I was fortunate enough to get to know Mr. King, BB King. I always called him Mr. King. Always did. Call me BB. Call me B Bernard. I never did. I always called him Mr. King. And he used to tell me all sorts of stories, about some pretty harrowing stuff. And, about how the first time he came to England and how fantastically he was received, and the way that he was treated. And, and then he told me the other side of the coin as well. And, what a fascinating, absolutely incredible man he was to sit down with on a one-to-one basis. And I'm so lucky to have been able to do that. But that stays with you as well, because you realise that whatever fame these people achieved by the time when BB was into his 90s, nothing changed the fact what he'd been through to get there. And I don't think he ever forgot it. And I wanted people. My daughter, when she was young, she went to Glastonbury. When she was younger, she's still quite young. And BB was on the bill, and I said, so just do me one favour. Please go and see BB King play live so that when you're older, you can say you saw him. And now she does. And I think that's kind of like, that makes it sound everything's fine to me, because that you pass on a little bit. And she's very aware of that music now as well.
It's funny, I've noticed that in a lot of people that were big, that they have retained some sense of normalcy. They treat people the same. They didn't change too much. Do you think it was the type of music? Do you think it's because they were American, or do you think it was the age they were at?
I just think it was the character of the person, really. I think, he was such a charming guy. One of the great things about him was, these icons you have, that when you spend a few days with them, on a kind of one-to-one basis, as if, not like you're in their band or anything like that, but you realise that he was the same as the rest of us, really, on the road, grabbing something to eat after the show, or, complaining about the overnight travel and stuff. And you think, oh, well, that's what I do. Well, of course, because he's just a man, but this was BB King sitting down in front of me while I was trying to do an interview and bumbling away. And, but after that first time, he always made me feel totally at ease. The last time I saw him was on tour when him and my good friend, the late Gary Moore, were touring together. So that's kind of poignant now. When I look back on that was the last time I saw them both.
Wow, I forgot that Gary did that with him.
Yeah.
I think I had Gary on the show a couple of times before he passed, and
Gary and I went back to when we were both 16.
Oh my God! Back in black and white days.
Yes.
And I didn't need an Irish interpreter like I did with Henry McCulloch.
No, Gary was very gentle, wasn't he? His voice was very gentle. Yeah.
Well, like I mentioned right back at the beginning, I felt that this set and the way that you've presented the music and the vocal and the selection and the band is going to open a door into more of what I call a general population listening. They'll have an appreciation that they don't need the history. They don't need to know more than to sit back and enjoy good music played well. Do you think, I think it's okay, but do you think the hardcore purists are going to like it too? I think they will understand what you're doing and enjoy it just as much.
I hope so. I haven't tried to make a record that's going to, that's radically groundbreaking or anything like that. It's just me playing the music of the artists that I, have a very important part in my whole career. But it's just, the blues is good time music. Blues is blues, Everything isn't that I lost my woman, there's all sorts of blues. And I learned that from watching these guys over the years. And I think there'll always be somebody to say, this is a guy from Buckinghamshire in England, and how can he possibly play the blues? Well, I'm playing the blues of the guys that I grew up listening to. So some people have already said that, do you feel like that you've done like, we were talking about Gary briefly, but, his breakthrough album, he was still got the blues. And, and, they're saying, are you kind of trying to do that? I said, no, not at all. Quite the opposite. I'm making a record, that I can be proud of and take out on the road as soon as possible, And as such, people, if it reaches a bigger mainstream, they say, oh, that's the guy from Whitesnake. That's the guy who wrote Here I Go Again. Where that becomes the second part of the conversation. Well, then I feel that's pretty good, it gets a little confusing because Here I Go Again was number one in America about a month ago again, wasn't it? Did you know that on Billboard?
No, I didn't know. I don't know. Was it used as a commercial or something?
No, it sold about 5 or 6 weeks ago. It went to number one on Billboard again. Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I looked at Billboard.
Yeah, I know.
Terrible, isn't it?
Well, I got contacted by my publishers, to tell me. Oh, I said, surely this is a misprint, And
does that mean you had a Securicorps van backing up to the back door?
No, that comes in a few months' time. Yeah.
Well, you hit an interesting point, because in the bio that I did back in the beginning of the program, I said he's known for this, but I do get frustrated with that being the first line, because when you look at everything since that would have been 1982-ish, since then, gosh, 40 years of collaborations, solo albums, it's not like you've stopped, and none of it has been remotely like that. So I do get frustrated, but, the same thing happens to all kinds of people. They get credited for something.
You get, I mean, I've been fortunate, whatever, say fortunate, or because that's what I do. I've worked with Jack Bruce, I've worked with Ginger Baker, I've been on the stage with the Allman Brothers. Joe Bonamassa, I wrote, most of Royalty with him in the last year and a half. Everything goes around, whatever, whether I'm playing with Government Mule, with Warren or whatever, it's just, I just get in the car and go, you know what I mean? Well, I did do until 18 months ago, but that's been my, that's been my way of life really, and but it's always going to come back to Whitesnake because of the massiveness of Here I Go Again. I'm not, you don't quite, that's going to happen regardless, because especially in America where that song is such a huge, iconic rock tune.
Well, it's funny that you say, I just get in the car and go. When you go, you do realise what a lucky bugger you are, right?
I hope so.
No, I mean, to lead that life, I don't mean that it's not worthy from a talent point of view, but that's what you get to do, But
that's what I've been doing since 1972, 73, when I first turned pro. Yeah. And that's why the enormity of the pandemic has been so great on all the musicians, especially from any generation, but us guys who have been around doing it a long time. To have 40 years, or sometimes even more, I mean, I talked briefly with Manfred Mann about a month ago, and he felt the same way. And it's like a wall came down and say, well, you're not doing that anymore. And at first it was quite, this is all right. The weather was nice in England at the time. And and then another month went by, and now we're all very trepidatious. I did a festival only 2 weeks ago in Wales. I had about 7,000 or 8,000 people there, and I honestly was as nervous as I can ever remember before I went on stage. And then I talked to the rest of the guys who I knew backstage who were playing the festival, and we were all of the same mindset. Because
everybody I've spoken to,
18 months.
Pardon? Yeah, everybody I've spoken to, it's not their confidence is simply something that they've not been able to maintain. Their ability is there, but it's like it's been so long, and you wouldn't think 18 months is a long time, but as a traveling, living, breathing stage musician, I was sitting in Roger Chapman's house in May, a couple of months ago, and this is another relevant point. It's going to be 80 next birthday. He's still got, the most unusual voice, of course, and his fear was the fact of, I want to play live. It's what I do. It's what I've always done. And he was a little concerned. Everybody is. Everyone I speak to has had the same thing. But you know what? Everything's opened up over here about 7 or 8 weeks ago. Festivals started last weekend and are ongoing. It's just going to take a couple of live gigs to go, whew, that feels good. I'm not worried anymore,
Well, I felt rejuvenated after the festival, and I did a private. Funny enough, I did a private party. Zach Starkey and I, and a bass player, we played at a private party the Wednesday after I'd done this festival with 7,000 or 8,000 people, and I think there were 50 people there, and we were again, all of us, really, we were looking at each other saying, "Are you nervous?" And said, "Yeah, really." And Zach, there's the drummer from the Who, he said, I feel a bit strange. I said, so did I on Sunday, but don't worry about it. Once we start playing, you'll be fine.
Well, you mentioned earlier Ginger Baker and Joe Bonamassa, which is a great segue to have me ask you how the Cream sessions went.
Hey, you know about that, do you? Okay. They were really good. Very different, very demanding. for obvious reasons. Ginger was in great form, both playing and verbally, shall we say. I'm trying to be polite. It was fantastic. I got Joe involved because I just thought he was the perfect person to be contacted, and because he's such a close friend of mine, you know, they said to me, "Oh, can you, would you possibly call Joe Bonamassa?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "What's he going to cost? What's he going to cost?" And I said to him, "Do you want, they want to know what the deal is." And he said to me, "You're on the session, right?" I said, "Yeah, of course, yeah." He said, "Right." He said, 2 Diet Cokes.
No, the reason I know about it is I talked to Pete Brown,
I thought you might talk to Pete.
Yeah, and also I had Bobby Rush over here a few times, and I just thought that was the most interesting thing for him to be added to that list of people on those sessions. What was that, 2.5 years ago?
One of the best 2 days of my career, working with Bobby Rush. He's such a trip. Oh man, it was like, to me, it was like I was in the studio with Howlin' Wolf.
Well, the reason I wanted to point that out is I mentioned Roger Chapman and Bobby Rush. There's a list of people you would be surprised if you think about it and put them together name-wise. You go, my God, he's right. There's a list of octogenarians that are rocking it. Tom Jones was the #1 album in England back in April. Eric Burdon is 80, still killing it. And there's a great long list of these people, and I want you to think about that because you're 10 years behind them, and it will make you feel very good about the future.
Well, thank you for that. I hope so. I mean, Manfred's in his 80s now. These guys are they're just remarkable, really. I mean, one of the younger ones is what's Eric Clapton, 75, 76 now?
He's up there, yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and because you'll think of them as being these older guys. When I was 15 and living in total awe of these guys, they were the great ages of 23 and 24.
Well,
and
I think
they're old blokes, but it's the whole thing. I hope everybody gets a chance to feel like I did down at that festival, and for all that tension to, not all of it, but 90% of it went away. And, I thought, you standing out on stage thinking, this is what I do. This is what I do. And it was great. The crowd, I have to say, were just incredible. So all the crowds are out there going out to shows. God bless you. It's because it all comes from you.
It does indeed. A very relevant point for us to close with a song, "Help the Poor." We're gonna finish off now. Those of you that tuned in late, you know the rules. You now have to get a letter of excuse from my mum. You can download it off the website and mail it in, and you will not be relieved of the $20 fine for not showing up to listen to the great Bernie Blues Marsden talking to us live from England about this terrific new album just out called Kings, where he's playing tribute. And we're going to close with his final contribution for this show anyway, Help the Poor, which is not as familiar as the others, but I think a lovely introduction into this album, a B.B. King song that maybe isn't on your top 10 B.B. King, but very well done, mate.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, it's always a pleasure, and to know that it's being played over there in America is a bonus to me, because America in the last 18 months has seemed a very, very long way away, and I look forward to be able to travel again and get out there and get down to the south and see my friends down in Mississippi and get over and just hang out again, as they say. But I'm glad you liked the record. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for having me on.
No, it was terrific. And don't forget, when you get in that car, go and do your bloody job.
I fully